All right, family, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed that media break. And as promised, I am rolling out the red, black, and green carpet for a very special guest. I mean, I don't know what to say about this queen. She's the author of Black Matters. It's a three-part trilogy that tackles some of the most pressing issues that face us here in Black America. She is a premier advocate for Black relationships. I mean, she's a polymathic scholar across fields like science, medicine, psychology, group economics, and culture. One of the preeminent thinkers and speakers, and most importantly, doers in our community. So, family, it is my honor again to roll out the red, black, and green carpet for our queen, Zaza Ali. Welcome to United Black America, Queen. How you feeling?
I feel excellent after that introduction. Thank you so much, Brother Assad. I need to hire you for my get you on my squad.
Hey.
You make me sound real good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be with you.
And it's been a long time coming. You know, we talked to Raheem Shabazz. He says, I don't know why you're talking to me. You need to get Queen Zaza Ali on. Talk to a number of other people, and they say the same thing. So it has been a long time coming. Definitely glad you're spending some time with us. And we're going to get into some very serious topics that, in full disclosure, I'm not the most capable person to speak on. So what I like to do, Queen, is I like to bring people like you on, warriors and scholars who are knowledgeable in these fields, to introduce these concepts and your thoughts and what you found as you study to the rest of the family. So primarily, do you want to introduce yourself to the members of the family who might not have heard of you? It's hard to believe that there's anybody out there.
Well, sure. I'm Zaza Ali. I am an author, a public speaker, a researcher, a student, and a lover of God, and a lover of life, and a lover of our people all around the world. And, I just woke up one day and decided that I was not going to sit back and watch all of the ailments in our communities and not doing anything, that I wanted to be a part of the solution. So, here we are. I've traveled across this country teaching and learning from our people. And I've also, for the past, I would say 15 years, been an avid researcher and student of Black culture, of African history, of the scientific war against our people, and all of the different cultural representations of us around the world. So, that's just a snippet of me. And I'm very happy to be with you.
Likewise, definitely happy to have you here. I don't want to pigeonhole you and put you in a wheelhouse because you have so many different areas that you've spoken intelligently on, done the research on, produced results in, as I mentioned in the intro. But one of the most serious issues that I believe we're facing in the Black community are our relationship issues. When we talk to brothers and sisters and they say that unity is the biggest problem that we face, and, there's some consensus there. A lot of people will say, well, we have a problem with unity. My reaction is, well, unity starts with relationships. So if you're saying that we have a problem with unity, we have a problem with relationships, and that's where you do the majority of your work. So I have some questions for you concerning Black relationships. Primarily, starting out, what do you feel are the biggest issues that we face when it comes to our Black children, our Black men, and our Black women, because those form the components of a unified relationship? So what do you think our biggest issues are in those areas?
Well, there are several, but always, as I always say, the root of all of our issues start with self, and self-love for us as a people. We could look at the demographic of our women, and then we could look at the demographic of our men, and then we could look at the demographic of our children. We have a real issue with that internal confidence, that internal love that is ours by birthright, our divine right. But because of the situation that we find ourselves in this country and even around the world, we in our 30 and 40 age range find ourselves learning from mistakes that we're making that we should have made when we were in our late teens and in our 20s. Women, and especially with social media, it's become so exasperated. Women fighting against men and men fighting against women. Well, there's no way that an intelligent, self-loving, and confident woman would have time to sit up and make videos and write blogs trying to destroy men, and vice versa. So I think that, when you have healthy and intelligent people that are already on their path and, have high self-esteem, you don't have time to sit around and wallow in that type of madness. But because we are not internally structured, with love and with that confidence, we're lashing out at each other. And of course, racism, of course, economics, all of the different dynamics that play into the society that we live in come into the fold with that. A lot of us come from dysfunctional families, and we tend to think that it's the single family households that are creating this dysfunction between the male female dynamic. But a lot of times our people come from two-parent households, where we didn't have fathers that were emotionally well-rounded and didn't know how to hug and didn't know how to talk to and didn't know how to love and appreciate the bond with their children and even with their wives. Or we have mothers who were emotionally or physically abusive to their children. I can't tell you how many brothers I talk to constantly that have issues with their mothers, that did not get the type of love that they needed, or were abused in different ways. So I think that, the proper handling of each other is something that we really have to focus on. The lack of empathy, the lack of compassion, you see online when people go through difficulties, whether it's a celebrity or whether it's someone in the community, we jump on this bandwagon to just start attacking each other like vampires. And it's just a knee-jerk reaction from a people and a mindset that is not centered in love and a proper foundation.
See, this is why we wanted to have you on, because I can already go in 15 different directions with this. I'm going to try and stay disciplined. As you were talking, I kept wanting to jump in. So many things to unpack there. So what you're saying is the root of our issue isn't necessarily how we get along with one another. That's a natural byproduct of how we feel about ourselves. My question to you is that an accurate assessment?
Yes. I mean, obviously there's that's an overall assessment. There are innuendos packed in that, but yes, right. That's an overall assessment.
Absolutely. And every case is different. Every individual is different. But getting into that, where does that lack of self-love come from? Because I think in order for us to solve the problem, we've got to get to the root. We understand the condition. We understand the results and the byproducts of certain causes, but we're not yet at the root. So where does that lack of empathy, that lack of self-love come from? Is it a matter of nature? Is it a matter of nurture? What are your thoughts on that? And what have you found in your research?
Well, so one of the things that I know for sure, and I'm working on releasing my third book in January called The Science of Sex, and not just from a physical, sexual, relationship perspective, but the broader impact that sex has on our community and the bond between the woman and the child, and the lack of understanding of the female and male dichotomy and anatomy. So we don't understand that a year prior to us conceiving a child, what the mother is eating and what the mother is subjecting her body and her mental faculties to, as well as the father, is affecting the sperm count. It's affecting the condition of the sperm. It's affecting the condition of the uterus and of the womb. So here we are living, oftentimes exuding dysfunctional behavior with alcohol, with drinking, what we subject our minds to, the amount of time we spend on the computer and the low electronic frequency waves. So there is a tragic happening, if that's the right way for me to say it, as far as how we're shaping and molding our bodies. Now, fast forward, you conceive a child. As a woman, you don't understand that you've already nurtured your body to be a toxic womb. So now you have a child developing that's supposed to be developing in a healthy setting that is developing in a toxic environment, meaning that the connection between the mother and child can be off if the connection between the mother and father is off, if the father is not in the household, or if he is not supportive of that relationship. That child is internalizing all of those issues, all of that pain, all of that suffering that mother is experiencing. So we have children that are being produced, whether there's two parents in the household, or whether it's a jump off type situation, or whether, however the child was produced, and obviously we know this is not all, but we're talking about a general consensus. We're being fostered and cultivated in wombs and in environments that are bringing us into this world already handicapped, already lacking that internal divine connection of love and lack of stress and just comfort that we should be born into as children. That's one aspect of it. Of course, we have the racial dichotomy in this country where, the darker you are, the more Afrocentric, facial features you have, the thicker and curlier your hair is, the harder your life is going to be from birth. We have that dichotomy. We have the pimp and player culture that we've embraced, especially in Black America, that is creating this weird climate where our girls are becoming extremely sexualized at a young age, and they are being preyed on in our communities, and they are being sexually attractive or attracting men, but they are not attracting men for the best parts of themselves. They are not attracting men for the beauty of their heart, the beauty of their spirit, the beauty of their minds. So all through preteen and teenage stages and young adult, we have this weird dance that's happening between our sons and our daughters and our men and our women that's not cultivating a spirit of love. It's not cultivating a spirit of righteous understanding and empathy and compassion. It's cultivating competition. It's cultivating hit it and quit it. It's cultivating this jump off culture. It's cultivating, and even, I said this in my second book, Plagues of Dysfunction, how we shape and mold our sons. We give our sons a pass for watching porn as children and for Playboy magazines and for, how many women they can knock off. Well, think about the women that they knock off. Think about the girls that our young brothers are knocking off. And,
Right.
I'm not blaming the brothers. I don't do that. There's equal, we can space this out. So there's enough responsibility for everyone. But I'm just talking about the dichotomy of our relationships and how we've gotten to this point. So, it's a very layered thing. There's a chemical imbalance in a lot of us, mental health issues in our community. And I think emotional well-being is something that we just do not spend enough time on. The lack of connection that we were supposed to have with our mothers, with our fathers. My father wasn't involved in my life enough, and my mother wasn't in my life at all. So like I said before, I started realizing that I was learning things in my late 20s and in my 30s that I should have learned at a very early age had my parents been involved and had they been helping me and guiding me in the best way. Now, all things work for the greater good. I don't regret anything that happened in my life, but still, as a mother now, I can look back and see how things got off, where things got off, so I can look at other people's perspectives and kind of help them navigate. And then the last thing I want to say about that is that, I'm counseling. I do one-on-one counseling sessions, and I'm finding now, and even through, these past few years, that there are a lot of women out here that have never had healthy and righteous relationships with other women. So how can we as women develop healthy and nurtured relationships with our men if we still have not found out how to respect and love and appreciate other women without being catty and combative and what have you?
See, we might be here for a while. I'm going to stay disciplined.
I hear myself speaking in the middle of the sentence and I'm like, stop talking, but I can't.
Great minds, because I do the same thing. Let me rewind. I want to talk about toxic wombs, right? And I want to expand the concept of a womb beyond the physical and into the environmental, which you did so eloquently. But just to build on that, as I was doing research for this interview, and I came across some of the earlier talks that you did, you were speaking about toxicity. You were speaking about things that were in the environment that have a detrimental impact on our babies, which ultimately become us as a people. Things like chemical toxicity. Baba Phil Valentine speaks on gender, media manipulation. He speaks on the environment, all as being used as vectors of mind control and influence and control over a people. And when we look at the environment that we're raising our babies in, an environment filled with toxicity, an environment filled with artificial processed foods that are high in sugar and other addictive substances. And I know you're a vegan. I'm making my transition as well, thanks to people like you. We have our babies going through precocious puberty. On one of your videos, you featured a child at 4 years old going through puberty. And when I started digging into that, that's a lot more prevalent than people are realizing. We got 4-year-olds going into puberty. And one of the primary factors behind that is diet. One of the other factors behind that are media and things that trigger behaviors in our children that are hypersexual. We see the presence of chemicals like BPA and plastics that lead to gender manipulation, the effeminization of Black men, all of these different things that happen in our environment. My question to you, amongst many of the questions that I have, is how do we start to repair those of us who have already been damaged? Now, of course, I don't look down on anyone for the things that they've endured. You mentioned earlier, all things for the greater good. To me, your scars are part of your beauty. But how do we go about repairing our people psychologically, socially, physically? I mean, there are people who are hypersexualized, and I'm one of them, who were hypersexualized at a very young age. And it's taken a lot for us to beat that coming into adulthood. So what are your thoughts on that before we jump on to a different topic? We're only on question 1, Queen. Go ahead. Go ahead. Family, today's guest is dropping some jewels in your lap. I mean, there's some life-changing information in the rest of this episode that I don't want you to miss. So to listen to the entire episode, here's what I need you to do. Take a second, go over to unitedblackamerica.org/VIP. That's where you can find this full episode, lots of other episodes that we've done, and show your support for both the radio show and the movement. Now, we're going to go ahead and cut it off right here. But again, if you head over to unitedblackamerica.org/VIP, that's where all of our full episodes will be. So once you make the jump over there, you'll never need to repeat this step again, and you'll always have access to all of our newly released shows in their full format. You can just listen all the way through, family. That is today's episode. I want to send a big shout out to Big West Productions. He does the editing and the sound for our podcasts. Shout out to Big West. We'll leave a link to his profile in the show notes page. Make sure you're following him on Instagram. And as always, I want to remind you all of our Black Code of Conduct. To do no harm to your own people, help your people when they're in their time of need, and above all else, family, hold the line. Habibi Fahodie.